Good evening, everyone. I want to call the meeting of the zoning board to order. If you would please rise and join us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please note the emergency exits are to our immediate left, in the middle of the room, to our left, and to the rear. These two doors on the left are the doors that you possibly come in.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to just do a roll call of all members present to establish the quorum.
Great.
Roll call in attendance be Phil Caballo,
Merson Cutlery.
Maria Rodriguez.
Stella Slattery.
Okay, to establish the quorum, introduce the one and only matter.
Good evening, all. Tonight's agenda, there's a discussion on the Town Center Grove area variance on Town Center Drive, grid number 6759-00-500438, zone TC. The applicant was referred by the planning board in seeking a 74.2-foot front yard setback variance from section 155 attachment 2, schedule B of the town code, which requires a setback of 0 to 15 feet. I'd like to make a motion to open the hearing.
second.
Second.
Great. Is the applicant here? Great.
Ready?
Yes, sir. Please.
I submitted a copy of our site plan application, the layout of the building. I have a couple other maps that kind of make some clarification on it, so maybe it's kind of clean it.
Sure,
So, I'm Mike Gillespie from Gillespie & Associates. I'm a consulting engineer. We're doing the work on the project. The parcel as mentioned is off of Town Center Drive. Everybody's familiar with the direct area there in the back. As you come into Town Center Drive, the library on the left-hand side, and then there's a couple of vacant parcels until you get to the direct area in the back. So we made a presentation on our initial application to the planning board going back a couple months ago. And the property itself is located within the DC district town center. What kind of came out of that meeting was that for this area, based upon what's there and what's coming, which is also Sparrow's Nest, if anybody's familiar, we'll talk about that quick. You know, most of the buildings that are out there, whether it's just proposed, they're not up against the road, they're set back.
Right.
So the TC zone, as I understand, was really along the main drive of 55 to kind of create more of a feel and things such as that. And so the request was to see what this would look with pushing the buildings back to kind of be in more in general conformance with what's out there and what's proposed. So what I do have here, and it's a little rough, but I think it gets the point across. So this is Coal Valley Road down here, and here is when you come up Town Center, Coal Center. So what I try to do is just kind of take an aerial where the existing library is, where our proposal is, and I do have a copy of Sparrow's Nest site plan. And this may have been modified a little bit since it originally was before the board, but it certainly provides some kind of idea of what's happening in the area. So here's Coal Valley Road, here's Town Center. So this is on the right, that's Sparrow's Nest proposal, which they're currently working through a planning board process. I understand they have a public hearing scheduled for this upcoming month. Thank you. with the planning board. So I took some dimensions, just generally, again, off of aerials and so forth. The library itself sits about 80 feet off of the front property, plus or minus, 85, 75. Right. Just sure. Everybody's familiar with the fact that it's set off of, the property a bit. The Sparrow's Nest property, at least on this plan, is a total of almost 135 feet off of the property line under Town Center Boulevard. I know that there may have been some modifications in terms of shifting this a little bit closer, and at some point they will be in front of you seeking the same variance, not the exact variance, but whatever it is. And then we are actually proposing around 89 feet, which these two dark spots are the two buildings that we're proposing on the site. So I wanted to show graphically kind of what was going on in the area. I don't think anything's been proposed for this particular parcel yet. But the variance we're asking for was kind of supported and brought up really by the planning board.
Right.
Our client said, whatever makes you happy, whatever works. So we're not opposed to moving this back as to, having it right up against the property line. So, we're making our ways back to the planning board and moving to that process. This is not obviously a hearing. We wanted to just get some feedback from you. I think the chairman of the planning board also, there's an email floating around somewhere. Which
There is.
Okay, you've seen it. I first I pulled up, I didn't have it, but, and it's kind of indicating that the planning board encouraged pushing things back. So, I think that's the long and short of it, and just want to get your feedback. So, if there was going to be some kind of an issue here, then, back to the buildings in front, which we're entitled to, and not do the other place, I guess. Use the parking, we'll have drainage and all that kind of good stuff. So that's kind of where we're at.
Can you tell me a little bit about your project that you're putting up there?
Yeah, so what happens is there's a 2-acre piece plus or minus. What's being proposed is a subdivision to divide into two separate pieces, and then what happens is it's actually 2 4-family buildings, which is permitted use within the TC zone. So, in terms of it's nothing, glamorous or fancy like what's over here, but that's the proposal on our part.
How much parking is going to be required?
Well, we're actually showing additional parking spots. The code requires about a space and a half to 2 spaces per unit. So really, you only had 8 and 8, which, so what we did is we really took a look. I think we had more like 10 to 12 per each building, and things like that. Just from a more practical standpoint, we had to make it work.
So if we grant a variance somewhere in the future, would it be the parking that would be up front, or just
The parking was proposed.
Okay.
On the front. Back when we originally had it, we had the buildings in front, parking behind, so this is kind of flip it around.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Permitted.
Can I ask why you're subdividing to put the buildings up?
Because there is a requirement with Dutchess County Department of Health, who we've also already sat down with this project on, that if you have a private well and you hook into a building, you have to stay in order to not have to meet what they call public water requirements, which will kick you into a well that needs 200-foot radius protection, a lot of other requirements. We have to keep this at 4 unit. So what we're doing is we're subdividing, making 2 distinct properties with 2 wells, 2 wood-cell septic systems.
So they're going to be on their own well and septic?
Just to be those
independent.
Within bounds.
What's that?
Within bounds.
Yeah, everything's going to be on each separate lot. There may be some shared stormwater, but each one will have a septic.
Yeah. So water treatment facility is not an issue.
We haven't potable water or stormwater.
Yes.
So potable water,
That's a question.
potable water won't, we'll keep under that threshold. There's still going to be, chlorination, things like that. That should not be an issue. I'm not familiar with water well being an issue out here, but part 2 is the stormwater. As you come in off of Bow Valley Road, town center kind of slowly goes up. So everything goes from this side to this side.
Yeah.
Let's call it, this is north. so
East to west,
East
right?
to west.
Yeah.
We have our stormwater facility down here. So soils are not great up there.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to play with that a little bit to make it work.
So it sounds like from an engineering standpoint, that's probably the most ideal locations for those buildings. Would that be fair to say?
I would think that would be good.
Yeah.
I mean, I can make it work if they were flipped.
Yeah.
That's the question you're asking, because the storm, everything grades-wise still works this way. So,
No, I think it makes a lot of sense to have parking in the front versus in the back. I mean, it's, you know, it's a dark area. If parking is behind a building, you know, could, I mean, resident safety issues, right? So parking in the front, I think, poses a really favorable property for the buildings.
yeah, and I think Sparrow's mess, you know, again, I don't think they deviated a whole lot from this, so they're also proposing that parking right in front.
Yeah.
So, kind of matches what's going on.
And the variance that would be needed would only be to the front side, the road side, right? There's nothing adjoining the Sparrow's Nest side that would be of issue?
No, we meet our side yards and the rears and Beekman and neighbor requirements and all that kind of stuff.
So the front variance would be needed for that parking, that proposed
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
To get them back
Yeah,
that far.
yeah, got it, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Even though it is a large variance, it makes sense because the parking would be better in the front. That's what I see.
Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just not personal, I'm always for the parking up front, you know.
Yeah.
Keeps the various acts behind the scenes, you know, up in the light where people are always passing and seeing it.
And I agree, even though that variance is substantial, there's enough parking there to buffer the living
Yeah.
from the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing with TC zoning, and it was, I don't want to say an issue since it was conceived, but because there was already properties in the TC zone that were set back, you know, making new ones conform and try to make it look like it all along has always been tough. So, and I mean, this isn't the first time we've had anybody ask for the setback to accommodate moving their building back, put parking up front, and it's always on a case-by-case basis.
Right.
You know, it's contingent on, so this would be contingent on just this particular one before us now, and if, you know, everything comes back, that the planning board, you know, gives them all the okays, you know, that way if something in another lot on this property, somebody says, well, you did it for them there, this is contingent just for them, it's not like.
But it's also not on the traffic area, it's
Yes.
more in the rear. So there is a big difference with
Yeah,
how much
absolutely.
traffic you get.
But there could be cause for somebody on another lot that
Yes.
has to be within the TC zoning, that would need to be up front. So we just got to be clear that whichever way we kind of float with this, that we are on this lot only, you know, any decision or even favorable opinion, so that somebody down the road doesn't buy the lot next to them that's left.
And expects the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, that's the beauty of having those different plots, right? Each plot has its own engineering properties and contours and topography, so each has to be evaluated on an individual basis. Absolutely. Yeah.
And one of the things that's brought up by the planning board, which may help support a variance if I can so has granted, is that, you know, we do plan on doing, you know, some heavy landscaping on the front,
Yep.
provide for a buffer between, you know, towns that are dry. We just haven't got to that point yet, but that would be part of it. Okay. You know, we have include parking area and outside.
They probably, as residential, would want a little buffer to start with.
There is, I'm sure.
As residential.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, does anybody else have any other questions?
Yeah. Do you have any questions,
No,
comments,
straightforward.
concerns,
Yeah.
complaints?
So, Mr. Chairman, as I may have told you, the purpose of this particular applicant coming before this board was for the applicant to get a flavor for what the ZBA might be, you know, wanting, or any comments or questions that, you know, they could offer to the applicant. They could be addressed at a future meeting, you know, and the next step here would be a public hearing. So if it is the pleasure of this board to further this application along, they can set a public hearing for next month if the applicant wishes to join in that application. or we can hold off until, the planning board gives further direction. It's a coordinated review, meaning the planning board has to actually make a decision on the seeker end of that application. And this board cannot issue a decision until that is done, all right, as prerequisite. So Mr. Gillespie, what do you suggest?
Yeah, I mean, the presumption is that the planning board is going to be lead agent. I mean,
They are.
get the circulation going, at the next meeting or so, right.
I don't know what your timing is, so.
Yeah, like everything wants to, kind of start taking it along, but, if we could, just thinking,
Can be adjourned to February if you want.
really public with her, public hearing with her. Yeah, I guess we could do a public hearing out of it, not close it, see if there's anybody who has any opposition on the project,
Yeah, we'd have to keep it open until seeker is
Yeah, they close it out.
determined.
Yeah.
Well, if we put them on the agenda for next month and say they're not ready, they haven't got the bond done, we could always just remove it from the agenda on that night.
Yeah, we prefer not to advertise.
Yeah, I've done that, and people, if someone does have concern and show up, they get agitated.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's probably better to wait for the planning board.
Yeah, that makes sense. I don't think,
Just from an efficiency standpoint.
I don't think it's going to hurt us too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've got other things to deal with, health code and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we're not tied to, we haven't opened the public hearing, so
Yeah.
it's just an informal meeting
Yeah.
for, informational purposes.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to adjourn it, or, if the applicant wants to advance to a particular date and they have their mailings and we can notify them. But we would have to actually make a motion to set that public hearing in person, like right now. So I would suggest, Mr. Gillespie, what do you think? February?
We're January now, so it would almost be like March.
March?
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking early March.
Yeah, so if you want to set it down for a public hearing for March, if that's the pleasure of the board and the applicant, then we could actually, you can make a motion to do so.
Yeah, well, the first opportunity would be March 2nd, the first Thursday in March.
Yeah.
So I motion to set a date for March 2nd for a public hearing for Mr. Gillespie.
Second.
Here, second? Second?
Yep.
Okay. Motion passes March 2nd.
Thank you.
We'll
So the public hearing will be on March 2nd?
March 2 is the first Thursday in March. Yeah,
We would probably be back at the town hall for that.
Yeah,
we'll definitely be back at this.
There you go.
Well, there was, they had put these boilers in. Thank you very much for showing up.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, any other questions you have from us, or? Good.
I've been involved with projects where somebody puts one thing, I come back, and someone wouldn't have an issue with it, and I'm the grenade, so I just, everybody on the same.
Yeah. Well, appreciate it very much.
It's pretty clear cut here.
All right, thank you, folks. Have a good night. Take care.
You too, travel safe. Shorts. We did okay. So I made a motion to close the meeting. All right.
Time is?
Time is 7:20.
So we'll let, how have you guys been doing